So before I even get started this morning, I wanted to record this. It might end up being a podcast. It might not. But I just woke up from a dream that I have to tell you about before I forget it. And I'm still in LA, and I'm sitting by the window. I forgot to take my medicine yesterday, so my head is like it's called what is it called? It's hard to describe. It's like a jolt in your brain when you haven't taken, and I take Zoloft, a very low dose of Zoloft, but still when I miss it, which is quite often because I'm totally ADHD, I swear, I get this brain zap. That's what they call it. So that's what's happening right now. So I'm sitting in a chair, and I just got up from this dream, and so I don't even know where I am. Like I'm totally still there. But the dream, I was in a really bad mood in the dream. When I was younger, when I would get into these bad moods, I'd shut down, and I wouldn't talk for hours and hours. And it was almost like a self-punishment. It was like a power of wills inside my own head. Like, I'd be like, just come out of it. No, I can't. I got to stay the course. I've got to win this battle against myself. And, from the outside, it's just me totally shut down. But that battle is waging in my head, and it's just crazy. So I was having that, and I haven't done that in a long time. But I was having that battle in my dream. And I was shut down, but I was following someone around in a store who was shopping for food. And I, of course, was refusing to eat. And so I was not getting anything at the store, and I hadn't eaten for a long time. And so not only is it me shut down, but it's like a hunger strike. So I was having this shutdown hunger strike in the dream, following this person around while they're getting food and wondering how they can possibly function. And I can't. I really want to, and I can't. But eventually I started putting stuff in my shopping basket and going up to the counter. So this was a risk. This is something that I wouldn't have done when I was actually having those shutdown phases, or I wouldn't have come out of it, not even a little. A whole day would have to pass. Or I'd have to upset something in a big way. A friend would leave me, and I had a friend who walked to the next town over home because I was not talking to him anymore. And then I had another friend who had to call a family member over to help. And again, this is when I was younger. So back to the dream, I'm standing in line. Okay, this is a risk I've taken, coming out of the shutdown mode enough to put stuff into my shopping basket. And so I get up to the counter, and I can see over the counter, and there's other items on the other side. And the woman who was checking me out, she added those things into my order. And I said, no, those are not mine. And the discussion went on and on and on. And in the end, she accused me of stealing. And I was there with my boss, my actual real life boss, who I'm not naming, in the dream. And I looked at him, and she looked at him. And he walked out. And in that moment, and I'm feeling it right now because I'm still in the dream, I lost it, but the positive thing is, she's looking at me, everyone's looking at me like I did it, I stole something. And my trusted friend walked away and left me there, which in real life, this person would never do. So now that I'm thinking about it, all right, let me finish the explanation, but now I've come to a theory. So he walks out, and all eyes are on me. you're a criminal. And, I felt the absolute sorrow in the moment, which I'm feeling again now. But I looked around at the people, like there was a line of people in this store now waiting to check out, and there was this confrontation between me and the cashier, and now having to deal with me being someone who just stole something. And I turned around to everyone and I just started screaming at the top of my lungs, like screaming. And the first thing I said was, I'm having a bad day, like a really bad day. And I started just screaming about exactly what was going on in my mind and body. And I told everyone, I did not do this. I don't care if you think that I did, but I did not. And, that's it. So, thinking back to when my trusted person walked out and all eyes were on me, like, you did this. When that trusted person walked out, it gave me a reason to self-advocate. But that's the conclusion I'm coming to just by talking this through. And then, and these are very underlying, these are very underground feelings that I have just all the time. So I self-advocated. And then I've always had this feeling like I could never be in a leadership position because I don't trust myself. Not that I don't trust myself to be, I just don't trust myself. I mean, really, there's I can't pinpoint any details, but I think it's very much a foundational bit that I missed when I was a kid. And I know that for certain. If you go back and listen to my podcast, you'll see there are things totally missing from my upbringing and things that were abruptly and violently taken away. So yeah, in those very, very formative years. So I fight that all the time. So skip to scene 2, as dreams do. I'm sitting, now feeling, I was sitting in like a courtroom sort of thing. And, waiting for, I don't know what I was waiting for, but really weirdly, the old guy who was sitting with me, he's like the guy who was taking me to court and being like, she did it. So creepy old guy who had his legs over me, add insult to injury. Okay, a little, ugh. I had this experience with a lawyer just recently where he decided to hit on me, and long story short, actually, no, I'm not going to tell that story, but it was very unprofessional, and I had to call help in about it. And so maybe this creepy guy in my dream is representing this creepy lawyer who wanted to take advantage of me. So I got up I said, can you please get your legs off of me so I could get up and leave, because I wasn't being charged with anything at the moment. And I got up and left. All right, skip to scene 3. I'm in a theater style classroom, and the lecturer is calling people up or asking people in the audience to nominate leaders. And then that person in the audience has to come up with that nominated leader. So, I'm just sitting there watching everybody else get called up, like usual. And the lecturer looks at me and says, you have 2 fans. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was looking around. And this is after, and I've got to back up. I'm sorry, I'm being a little jumpy, but this is the nature of dreams. But I sat down in the lecture hall next to a businessman, and he said something about car keys that didn't have the dealership's advertisement on it. I don't know. And he thought that was, I don't know. I don't know what he thought, but I went into this explanation in the dream that they should definitely have their advertisement on the keychain, because that's what you carry around with you everywhere. You can't put the car in your pocket or have the contract everywhere, but you have that advertisement on the car keys, and so it's always with you. Yeah, whatever, big deal. That's not a very, whatever. But the point is the exchange in the dream, not about the content, which is not that great, but the exchange in the dream was him saying something, me coming back with this like brilliant explanation, and him looking at me like he just saw God, which happens to me in my real life all the time. And then the person who was nominating, or my two fans, one of them locked eyes with me. And it was a friend from high school. Like, this is for real. A friend from high school who I lived very close with, or lived close to, and she was my best friend. And so she lived with her aunt and uncle and her cousins in real life. Now, I'm talking real life. And her mother had died of breast cancer. And I lived a couple houses down across the street, and I lost my father to Alzheimer's. We were best friends, and we would take care of each other. And I remember her sending me a note one time asking me to please stop drinking, because I was in the real heat of all the awful things that were happening in my teenage life, and I started to pick up drinking with some unsavory people. And before that, I was against it. So she sent me a note and had a picture on it, and it said, drinking increases your rate or your probability of getting breast cancer. Please stop. And so we had that sort of relationship, like we were looking out for each other's life. And that house is the house that I went to the night that my mom was in complete crisis. And I walked over there in the dark, and I said to her and the family, like, something bad is going to happen tonight. And I don't know what it is, but it's something bad. And it did. Something bad did happen. And days later, they were the first people. She was the first person I went to. So in the dream, she nominated me as a leader. And I haven't seen her for since high school, but we hugged in the dream, and it felt so real. And she said, because I was wondering why would you nominate me? I come from a background of wreckage. Why me, really? And she said, you saved my life. And I don't know what that means. I really don't. She said, you have to, oh no, she said, you saved my life. You need to go out there and represent people like me, is what she said. And we walked up to the stage, kind of wrapped around each other, hugging, and she walked me up there. And then, you had to, so weird, walk with your friend up to the stage, and then there was a certain place where the friend had to leave you behind, and she walked off and left and went back to the audience. And I think that's it. I think that's all I remember from the dream. It was painful, obviously, God. But there's so many messages there. I think that if you take them at face value, you miss what the psyche is trying to say. You could wake up and say, in my dream, I was a criminal.